Warning, the following podcast contains graphic language that Nancy Reagan and Tipper Gore deemed inappropriate in a civilized society.
We're here to talk about the political environment and kind of what it means. Some of us are going to have our own views. These are our private views. Every person has a bias, and hopefully you'll know that we wear our bias on our sleeves. That way you don't feel like we're trying to deceive you in any way.
It's about time to get with the program.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to episode 14 of ProgRam. I am here, as always, Chris Guru, way up in Maine. Mr. Cheney will be joining us a little bit later, but he is not here for the first part. And with us, oh my God, is it wait, let me clean my glasses here. I think it's Josh Cameron. Hey there, man. How's it going?
Oh my gosh, I know. I have some time. It's going great. Thanks for having me back. I enjoy contributing. Felt bad that I haven't been able to do as much as I prefer.
Oh no, it's great. You're out there saving the world in Utah, right?
Yeah, I try. It's good to let people know that Utahns aren't just knuckle draggers.
No, not at all. Well, so you've been being pretty productive. I know you got a lot of school going on. You've been showing up to rallies. There's even a rumor of you having a raptor head on at one point. I think that video might crop up on our YouTube channel at some point.
Oh my gosh. So I tried to troll Alex Jones and then just kind of got bored. And so maybe I'll need some help with that. But I've got a screenshot of me wearing a raptor head. So think of Blue from Jurassic World. And,
okay.
And it's insulated, so Christ, it was hot. And so I'm out in Utah, desert sun. This thing's beating on me. And but I got a screenshot of me posting at or tweeting at Alex Jones, just saying, I am a creation of your nightmares, a lizard person, plus, I mentioned that I'm a precinct chair for the Democratic Party, which means I'm involved in politics. I'm running for school board, which means that I'm going to, part of government,
right.
If I can, and now lizard people running the government, which is like, what?
Well, then you should fit right in.
I know, exactly. Right. Exactly. And stuff like that keeps him up at night. And I figured if I can make Alex Jones lose some sleep, then it's a job well done.
Yeah, I think might actually just email the clip to him.
Yeah, right.
Nice. We'll bombard him.
And then later, so at that same rally, I took off the raptor head and I got a picture with U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley.
Ooh.
And yeah, so while I wish he was maybe a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe not angry. Like he doesn't necessarily need to be angry. Maybe just more excited and voracious, I guess, ferocious on how he speaks out. Though I love what he's doing. This guy went to one of the ICE detention facilities in Texas, and it was so bad what was behind their doors that instead of letting a U.S. senator in, they called the frickin' cops on him.
My God.
And, yeah, dude. And so, this is a guy who is out there. Yeah, sure. Maybe he's not exactly as progressive as I prefer. This is a guy out there doing some good. This is a guy out there trying to make sure that he can help out where he can. And, I want to make sure that he knows that I support that. And so, I shook his hand. I told him as a combat vet, thank you so much for what you're doing, to which, of course, he gave me and I'm sure he meant nice by it, but he gave me the throwaway line of thank you for your service, which
right.
It's nice that people feel, that people say that, but it's ultimately a pretty, philosophically empty idea.
Yeah. Actually, my girlfriend is a vet as well. And she tells me, especially on Veterans Day, she's like, I hope nobody says that to me today. It's the least you can do. It's like saying thoughts and prayers after somebody dies. Right?
It is. It's pretty close. And yet it creates an opportunity because somebody at this point in time now feels the need to express to you that they're thankful for something that you've done. And then maybe you can redirect that and say, well, you know what? If you really are thankful, go out and vote. Hey,
always the
if you really
proactive one, Josh. I love it.
I try. If you really are thankful, hey, download this app. Our Voice. Something to see what you can do to redirect. People are mad. People are angry. People want to throw stones. And, or if people just are happy and they want to go out and sing Kumbaya, figure out how you can use that energy into something productive and use it to benefit the working class.
That's why you're the spokesraptor.
Well, yeah, I did love that. The smoke traffic. That's so awesome.
So hey, in other news, if you don't mind me shifting gears here, a woman out of nowhere showed up and decided she wanted to represent New York's 14th, and she went against an incumbent that's set in the seat for 10 years. And with what was it, like a ratio of like 1 to 18 on the raising of money, she barely took in.
Yeah, it was between 1 and 10 and 1 to 18.
Yeah. Bootstrapped it. Ocasio. Oh my God, good for her.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it only 10 years? I thought he was 10 term. Like, I thought he'd been in.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right. I missed 10 terms.
Yeah, and so this is a 10 term, number 4 Democrat in the House.
Yep.
Joe Crowley, and he loses to first time 28-year-old, first time to run for office, 28-year-old Puerto Rican woman. Though it's so interesting, and you kind of threw it out there, and I know that that you've known who she is for a while, or at least I assume you have.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of Justice Democrat pals at our voice place. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and then not just that, but the mainstream media and Joy Reid is one of them that came out and was like, "Hey, look at this! I'm reading up on Ocasio-Cortez. I suspect everybody else is too." And that's kind of like this idea of, well, nobody else knew who she was, so it's okay that I don't know who she was. Well, like, who knew she was? Mike Figueredo from the Humanist Report.
Yep.
Freaking Jimmy Dore from the Jimmy Dore Show. Ron Placone, Jeff Waldorf from TYT Nation. These guys know who she was. Why? Because they have a finger on the pulse of the working class. And so these are guys who know who Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was. Graham Elwood. When I was on his show, he even mentioned her, about how he was inspired by her as well. And so if you surround yourself with party insiders, and of course she came out of nowhere, but if you've been watching what's going on, she didn't come out of nowhere. She had basically a grassroots army behind her by the time that she crossed that finish line.
Obviously she didn't have, Ocasio said things that everyone like us were paying attention to, but she didn't have any cash to spend on it.
Right.
And so that's exactly why Joy Reid didn't know who it was, because they dismiss everybody who walks into the game that doesn't have $1 million behind them already. Exactly.
Well, and then consider that, this is something that Papa Bear Jimmy Dore rails about a lot, is that these journalists use access journalism. So they always play nice, so they can make sure that they get all the invites, they can be part of the in crowd, and they can make sure that they get to talk to Sarah Huckabee Sanders and get the latest and greatest lives, and then just go and regurgitate them. Well, it's so interesting how they also tell us to play nice. Well, they're playing nice as a means of them being controlled, where they aren't antagonistic as the Fourth Estate should be towards power and hold them accountable. And then they turn around and tell us to play nice too, so we can be cowed, so we don't rise up, so we don't question our place in society and demand something better. And that's what Ocasio-Cortez said. And one of the most inspiring things that I read from her was she mentioned, and I'm don't quote me on this because I'm going to mess up the whole tweet, but she effectively said, people are talking about how I came from the left. She's like, I don't come from the left. I come from the bottom. Boom. Class war, man. It's something you, me, and Jessie have talked about a few times. It's a class war. Class is what connects us all. So the thing about her coming from the bottom is that, she's speaking to class struggles. She's speaking to class pain, and class transcends race. Class transcends sex. Class it speaks of the economic struggle of 40 million people making $24,000 or less a year, which is federal poverty line, or that over half the country, I want to say closer to 60%, are a $500 to $1,000 emergency away from bankruptcy. So people are living hand to mouth. They're scared. They're mad. Their fight or flight mechanism is constantly triggered, and this is where it's people like Ocasio-Cortez who can take that pain, who can speak to it, who can acknowledge it, and then can redirect it and shape it and direct it to something productive. Let's take on the establishment. Let's not do this the same way, status quo. And if you notice, she's not taking things sitting down, man. Like Tammy Duckworth. Tammy Duckworth came out and was like, well, maybe that's good for the Bronx, but you can't win the Midwest if you go too far left. And then she came out and was like,
squad showed up in her defense, by the way, showing how Bernie won like nearly every county in that whole area.
Exactly. Well, and she even came back and said, all due respect to the senator, Bernie won Michigan. He won, went through all the different Midwest states that he had won. If you look at the map, like pretty much the entire Midwest was won by Bernie. So obviously there's something there. And what's most interesting is how scared the establishment is of a 28-year-old young progressive, not necessarily a political alignment, but progressive and advancing progressive ideas, Puerto Rican woman.
And who, might I add, is actually completely open and totally, in my opinion anyway, from my experience with interacting with her on Twitter, she is totally into the idea of us scrutinizing her from the left. Because it's not even a purity test. It's okay, so why did we just see this? And she comes back, well, I have a reasonable explanation. We're like, okay, well, how about that? She goes, well, I got a reasonable explanation. And we said, okay, you're good, you're sold. Like, one of the first things that came out that seemed like it was about to be a smear, and I had to see it for myself, was that before she was elected, she had on her website that she had a peace economy, a whole section under her issues that she pointed out that we're in 7 wars. She pointed out that Congress lost their ability to declare war by allowing the authorized use of military force and letting POTUS have all these extra drone strike rights.
For 90 days, yeah.
Yeah. And so she pointed that out and said, one thing that I definitely want to get involved in is trying to change all that, end those wars, close down some of these military bases, and stop having an economy based on destroying everything else. And then after she gets elected, for some reason, and it's still unknown, maybe they were taking stuff down for maintenance, but a lot of us saw that one part was removed from her issues. And so somebody pointed it out on Twitter, and I went and looked for it myself, and I put the picture up, and I'm like, hey, yeah, what gives? Ocasio actually jumped into the conversation people were having and said, wow, I didn't realize that. Volunteers created the website. I'll get to the bottom of it. So a few days passed by, and I go on my phone again, and I go back to the website, and it's still not there, and I started making a stink. And I showed a video of, hey, you said you were going to do this, and now it's still not there. What's going on? And eventually somebody corrected me. I'm an idiot, and I didn't clean out my browser cache. Apparently, she not only brought it back, I'm sure on her insistence, she also brought back like several other sections that are all hitting really hard with that DSA talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, ending the wars, abolishing ICE, the free healthcare, talking about getting people educated for little to no cost, the minimum wage. She brings it all up, and it's precisely what we the people are looking for, those of us who are coming from the bottom. So I erased my video, I stopped the vitriol, and I'm 100% behind that woman. I really hope that she wins.
And this is also, coming, you mentioned Justice Democrats. There's possibly the most famous Justice Democrat that's currently serving is Ro Khanna. And, he was on the Jimmy Dore show. And, they asked him, yo, bro, what's up? How come you endorsed Joe Crowley, but then you came out and endorsed Ocasio-Cortez? And he explained himself. And then afterwards, when he was done, he's like, hey, Jimmy, as always, it's a pleasure coming out here. I always tell my colleagues that we should welcome this type of challenge. We should welcome the hard questions and come out here. And because, it helps us with refining our message, and it helps us make sure that we stay on point. And regardless of how you feel about somebody's exact 100% platform, the idea that somebody is more interested in meaningful dialogue over being 100% right is somebody that I want to start having a conversation with. That's somebody who I'm willing to look to as a leader.
And I don't even see that kind of thing as flexible morals or not having conviction. I think that's someone who realizes that everyone is a human being, including themselves. And whatever they think they've gotten exactly right, you need to listen to the people that you're representing, and pretty much everybody else these days. I mean, with the internet, we're all connected now. But you should need to change. In fact, once you take that job, it's no longer about your opinion, damn it. It's about all of ours. And I really think that she's going to be that type of person. I really believe that Bernie Sanders has always been that type of person. And there are probably some other senators out there that have, as of yet, not had their names known to others who maybe only served a couple terms, but they were definitely like that. And they get drowned out by all the money and the vitriol over these parties that are basically in their... I think it's their death throes. I think the RNC and the DNC are completely freaking out. The RNC for the Tea Party, the DNC for the progressives. Like, not to compare the two, but they're getting overrun. I mean, Dem exit and Dem enter is kind of, I don't know, at least it looks like it's about to work.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I must say I like the idea of them enter more, even though I'm very much a strong advocate of them exit for those who really feel that that's the only course left for them. And the reason why I like the idea of dem enter is because we have working mechanisms in place that a lot of times are hijacked to do bad. Whether it be socialism, where we have welfare for elderly or disabled, social security for those who have worked worked their whole lives, and then we go ahead and then give it gets hijacked. So instead of socialism for the people, we give socialism to corporations and give handouts, and then we make the working class pay for it. And so I like the idea of a corrupt and parasitic system that can get hijacked and then be used for good. And in much the same way, you helped me clean up an op-ed that I published for our Speak Our Voice. I've got a lot of feedback from some of the people in my office who really like the way that you formatted it with a lot of different questions, and you italicized some of the questions to give them added poignancy. The pictures there, and with that, I specifically mentioned that I was running for office for school board in Granite School District 6. Well, that same op-ed I also submitted to my local newspaper, the Salt Lake Tribune, who reached out to me and said that they wanted to publish it, which they did. Yeah. So now through the biggest newspaper in Utah, the Salt Lake Tribune, runs this op-ed of mine where I'm castigating the Democratic Party leadership, Trumpistan in general, anybody who thinks that if you don't like something, then you should just leave, like our country. If you don't like the way the country is, then you can just leave, and call them a terrible American, right. And really just talk about how we can do better. But with that, how I mentioned that I was running for school board, well, in my job, I'm also a lab manager. We have all sorts of Vacutainer blood tubes that are expired that I can throw away. Well, I figured I wanted to see, since I'm a democratic socialist myself, I wanted to see how I could benefit, my local area with these things. Reached out to a high school in my school district, talked to a guy, says that they could probably use them. He came by, picked them up just today, and guess what I did? I handed him a copy of my op-ed along with the stuff. I said, hey, I got published, something that you might be interested in. I picked his brain for maybe a minute just about the school district, mentioned that I was running for school board, and like a virus, and not all viruses are bad, but like a virus, I'm infecting from within and spreading. And if I have good ideas that can infect and spread, I like this idea of hijacking parasitic mechanisms and using them for good. And I encourage anyone else to kind of look through that same lens, and how do you help your local area? And maybe we want to save the world, but think globally, act locally, and expand.
Hear, man. Yeah, and even in the last episode, Corey Henderson was a guest in studio with us. Yep. And he explained to us, and I'm sold by both of you, because I was dem exit right after the Sanders debacle and the DNC pretty much stealing the primary from him. Yeah. And that was my reaction to being pissed. I'm like, okay, done. I unregistered. I'm an independent now. But Dementer, as far as the infiltration concept is concerned, he put it bluntly. He said, look, there is right now a power concentration in just 2 spaces. So if you really can't stand the DNC, then go vote in the RNC primaries, but vote in the primaries, because that's the place where most people don't show up, and your vote actually has even more power. Now, I pointed out, I was like, well, superdelegates kind of eliminate that for you, because with their thousands of votes, it kind of looks like the entire population again. But be that as it may, if you vote, and you vote often, and you get your friends to vote too, and for fuck's sake show up to the primary, then by golly, you could actually end up with a situation where you don't have to vote for the lesser evil. There is literally not a lesser evil in New York's 14th now because of Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, right, for real. And then Ocasio-Cortez is reaching out to Zephyr Teach-Out's volunteers and sending out information to try to mobilize them. And imagine if Zephyr Teach-Out becomes the district attorney of New York. and imagine what's going to happen with somebody like Ocasio-Cortez and Zephyr Teachout working together. And then what about the, I can't remember the guy's name, the progressive champion in Philadelphia, who's also the district attorney there. And they can work together, dude. Oh my gosh, we have a lot going for us. And your district attorney, your governor, and your mayor, including city council, of course, but I highly encourage anyone. Like maybe you think that presidential vote doesn't matter, and really, arguably, it doesn't if you think about what your one vote means. But your one vote is huge when it comes to, like you mentioned, primaries, when it comes to voting for a mayor, city council, things, races that you can lose by 1 or 2 or just a handful of votes. But then also your governor. These are people that are going to have immediate influence over your immediate area and are going to have probably the most far-reaching. And then one last point I wanted to make, you mentioned about, even with super delegates, even if you do go and vote in the primary, well, imagine if there weren't so many rabble-rousing Bernie bros, so to speak, in the democratic process. These super delegates would have gotten away with it. Yeah. We lost our shit, and guess what? Now they're panicking, and even though they only do half measures every time, they never get rid of super delegates.
We reduced them. Yeah, right.
Exactly. We reduced them. We limited, what influence they have. Well, how about we get rid of them? But even though they haven't gotten rid of them, we've made it so much harder for them. And because why? We're infiltrating. We're saying we're no longer having it.
Exactly. And if we can get even more people to show up next time, because there's a lot of apathy out there. I was just on Facebook discussing something with a Miss Snow about how she said, I'm just not voting anymore because this shit's all rigged. And I'm like, look, yes, it's rigged. And yes, the media tells everybody that it was this and that's not really true. And it was actually that. And they're full of shit and bought and paid for. But the more of us that come out and vote in the primaries, the more of us that keep pushing the envelope, the less power they're going to have because they're scrambling to try to put all these fires out that we're starting. It's not a real revolution. There aren't pitchforks and guns and torches yet. But right now, it's a revolution of us realizing that we still have power left, and we just woke up, and they took 80% of it away from us already. And so now we're like, holy crap, now we got Trump involved? Jesus Christ, this is the symptom of us not paying attention. We got to do something about it.
Right.
So I'm telling you, if I just said to her, I was like, what do you think would really happen if like 90% of the population turned out for the primary vote?
Well,
we'd have a totally different landscape. That's my point.
For real. And as I understand, Russell Brand has even reneged on his stance of don't vote. And he understands that, you really should get involved. And
just don't vote for pieces of shit. That's my argument. Vote for people who earn your vote, even if it's the person who's probably not going to win. Fuck it, vote for them.
Yeah, right. And don't let people vote shame you. You know what? You did your duty. If 46.7 million people, 46.7% of the population can't, don't see the need to vote, well, then you know what? At least you did your civic duty. Don't let anyone tell you that. Your vote was wasted. Granted, there are people who I wish voted in different ways, and those aren't the people who voted for Johnson or for Stein. I wish people didn't vote for Trump, but I understand the pain. I understand the fact that the Democrats literally gave nothing. They said, hey, we're not Trump. Oh, hey, let's go bomb Syria. Oh, but I learned from Iraq. Oh, but let's go bomb Syria again. Oh, but I learned from Iraq. Oh, I didn't do anything about the coup in Honduras. That wasn't me. Oh, but my book says that it was me.
And then I took that section out in the softback.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I took that section out, and then when Obama said that his number one regret was Libya and not knowing what to do the next day after toppling the government, she came out and defended it. Oh, but I learned from Iraq. Oh, but let's defend this shit show in Libya. Oh, but I learned from Iraq. Oh, but let's go and bomb Syria some more. Oh, but I learned from Iraq. And it's insane. And how is it that people don't see this? Because we're fed propaganda, which is why, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that in my op-ed, I blasted mainstream media. The fact that they, the very last paragraph that I have in here says, why do people feel the need to watch and listen to CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, The Blaze, hear their propaganda, and need to believe it without challenge? How does lack of critical thinking make your life better?
And the newspaper kept that in too, right?
Yeah, the newspaper kept that in. And here's what's even more interesting, and what I think is awesome, is that I just made parallels between CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News in the blaze. And
You're damn right.
that makes my heart swell. I just feel so good about that.
Well, I personally believe that CNN and MSNBC recognized Fox's hand over fist cash making ability during the Obama years and decided, hey, why do we? Okay, Fox technically is not even allowed to be called a news organization. Even though, and I'll admit, there are parts of Fox News where they do report the news. They're not just giving you their personal commentary 24 hours a day. There are small segments where the guy just reads the news like he's Hugh Brenner or something, you know? But but CNN and MSNBC, they also have those segments. However, they've already had their prestige, like, because of the original channels. And CNN used to just be like headline news almost, right? Does anybody out there remember that? They saw Fox made all this money, and so now they've turned themselves into news magazines, is my point. And it's nothing but opinion editorials. All it is editorial. There is hardly any news in there at all. And whenever they bring some point up, they skew it to the center right. And I could say to the left, but that's what the Republicans want me to say because they're not the left.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, and CNN's actually been shown to make you dumber. If you watch CNN on the regular, studies now show that it actually saps your IQ. It just makes you dumber. Why? Because it's very lowbrow. They set themselves up like it's like a sports update. Dun 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 dun. Check this out. The Marlins got a home run. Dun 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 dun. Oh, check this out. This person tweeted this. Oh my gosh. Let's go check out what the next political gossip is. Dun 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 dun. Meanwhile, Ocasio-Cortez says, hey, by the way, people are starving. We need more rent control because these out of control rent prices are pushing the working class out of the city. Good luck having a functional city without working class. And it's really interesting to see how people are so hurting right now that where the norm is, well, I'm not political. I'm just get tired of politics. People are eating it up because they need some hope. This is why, Star Wars is so big. People love the hope. Even in the most hopeless situations, it's whether it's a virtue or whether it's a problem that we have as people. We cling to hope. So give them hope. But give them
I think it's a virtue myself.
I think it's a virtue too.
You can be a realist and say the world is finite and you can calculate everything, and so therefore hope is kind of stupid. But no, I don't believe that's true. I think there are incalculable things that happen out there, like Ocasio-Cortez winning her race. And those kinds of things bring hope to people. And hope actually turns something on, and you probably know more about this than I would, but I guarantee you the thought that truly hoping for something can kickstart shit in your head. It makes thoughts happen. It makes people come up with new ideas. It makes people innovate. It makes people actually get the job done when they thought they couldn't have done it.
Well, and it makes people believe. And if you're a believer, you can find that zone. The op-ed that I posted, I found that zone. I have yet to have somebody tell me they didn't like it. I've got hundreds of people reach out to me. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I was proud of it. And I'm glad that it turned out the way it did because I found that zone. I try to tap into that hope as well and try to utilize it where I can.
And with that, we're going to have to go ahead and cut to commercial. Got another one coming in to tell people more about the Our Voice app with Corey Henderson, as always. Josh, nice. I understand you got to leave us now, and Jessie's going to be stepping in. I guess it's a little bit of tag team wrestling. But it has been a pleasure, and holy crap, you're a third of our puzzle, and we want to see more of you around here. Okay, buddy?
Sweet. Yeah, definitely. Though, if it's going to be a tag team, I want to be Rey Mysterio, if I can.
Who's the biggest, baddest wrestler out there?
I don't know, but maybe if we could go joke-wise, Jessie could be like Earthquake and I could be Typhoon. Remember those giant fat guys who wrestled and were awesome? They'd like sit on you. they'd body slam you and then sit on you until you give up. Oh, dude, so great.
Oh, shit. Yeah. That's it. Jessie is Earthquake.
Yeah, right. I'll be Typhoon.
Hey guys and gals out there. It has been a long time since we've done a commercial for the Our Voice app. And so we thought it about time to do it again, and there have been 2 updates since. So with me, as always, for one of these is Mr. Corey Henderson, the technology director for Our Voice USA. So Mr. Henderson, nice to have you with us again. Actually, I think you're in this last episode too, so that's kind of cool. How you doing, man?
I'm doing just fine.
All right. So can you fill us in on what kind of changes have made? Is it to the canvassing part of the app?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the 2 biggest, most noticeable changes, because it's been more than 2, is number 1, when you zoom out, markers cluster together and show a number for that area. And when you tap on it, it gives you a breakdown, how many have been knocked on, how many weren't home, etc. That's update number 1. Now, behind the scenes, as a part of that update, the map gets a lot faster because it doesn't have to render as many pins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that helps scale the app so we can support tens of thousands of addresses rather than just thousands. The second update, major update, is what we call geofencing, where you select a district, and right now we offer the state you're in, a congressional district you're in, or a state legislative district you're in. So when you go to edit a form, you can restrict canvassing to a district, and you tap that button and it says, what do you want to restrict it to? And you select the state legislative house. And then when you load the map, there's a black line drawn, that's the district. And if you try to drop a pin outside it, it will give you an error.
Wow, so that should significantly cut down on any kind of mistakes made in the data collection, right?
That's right.
Okay. Will you be able to draw these lines yourself, or are they just kind of a preset shape based on what it currently is?
These ones are preset, and they're available on our websites. That's where the app gets the data from. In the near future, you'll be able to draw your own, and that's called turf cutting.
Turf cutting. Okay.
And that's what we're working on right now. And what comes with the turf cutting application is the ability to scale it even larger, because then you only have to worry about sending data of a specific area to a canvasser, and your database can have 100,000 or millions of addresses, and then each canvasser only gets a small chunk of that. So the app already being able to handle tens of thousands of addresses can be supported with a backend of millions.
That, sir, is brilliant. Instead of expecting everybody to have full access to absolutely everything, you're just giving them exactly what they need, and it's fitting right inside of what their phone's capable of.
Correct.
I like that. So is that another piece of the puzzle with the, I love the coined phrase, decentralized data?
Yes, because you're operating on data, geographically near you, and you don't care about, nor does the operator of a canvassing operation want you to have all the data anyway. So by everybody contributing their small chunk of data, then it becomes decentralized.
Well, that's what I call teamwork.
Yep. Yeah. As an IT guy, I look at the world through ones and zeros and bits and bots, and then the human comes in and puts the correct label on it. So teamwork, yes.
That's what I'm here for, to rehumanize yourself.
I sure do appreciate that.
Sting and the Police reference for the older crowd. Thank you very much. Are there any other updates to the app there, Corey?
There's lots of little things. I've had some great feedback from the people who are using it quite successfully, I might add. There's one individual in particular says that he's gotten 5 times as many canvassers this election cycle as opposed to last time, entirely because the app makes it so easy.
Wow. That is definitely the kind of feedback you need to hear, huh?
Yeah. And then, you have lots of people who give their feedback. Now, a lot of people are afraid to criticize something they like. And whenever I talk to someone about it, I be sure to emphasize, I appreciate, you giving so much praise. Is there anything I can do to make it better?
That's a good point. Yeah, because if you don't hear any of the negatives, especially from the people who don't want to hurt your feelings in the process, then how would we ever make it better for people? Yeah, I can see that.
And like I said, I'm a robot, so I don't have feelings. Well, I do, but you can't hurt them very easily anyway.
No, not at all. Beep, bop, boop. Yeah, so That'll get cut out for sure. Well, Mr. Henderson, it is always a pleasure to have you with us. Is there anything in the near future, any larger changes to be made to the app going forward, or are you in kind of a scenario where you're going to clean up and trim up the edges, or what's going on there? What's your near future entail?
Most certainly clean up and polish off the edges. I have some irons in the fire, as it were, as to try and getting more data. And if those pan out, then it will be much easier to expand the non-canvassing functions of the app. So those are revelations that are yet to come.
What's the, I think you told me about this before. What's the coder terminology for cleaning up the loose edges there?
Oh, technical debt.
Technical debt. There we go. Yeah, that's what I was shooting for.
I'm sick of paying the technical debt, so I'm going to go, pay the entire principal.
Well, Mr. Henderson, as always, it has been a great pleasure to have you on the show to tell us more about this awesome free app that you work so hard at producing. From all of us who are going to benefit from it in the future to all of you involved, thank you, sir, from the bottoms of our hearts and the tops of our votes.
You're welcome.
Hey there, everybody. I got a chance to take an interview with Kelley Lane of Speakeasy. Hi, Kelley. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Kelley, you do a whole lot of work in the background and the foreground for, I guess you could say, the progressive movement, or at least your own style of politics. Actually, but I should ask, which way do you lean, I guess, is the new way to ask that, huh?
Good question. So I think the best way to explain that is kind of to give you my voting history. So
okay.
My first presidential vote was for Ralph Nader at the age of 29. So coming from Republicans on one side of my family and Canadians who like their socialized medicine on the other, I kind of didn't really know where I sat. And I'm glad to say now, I'm proud to say I never voted for Clinton. But so I was, I voted for Ralph Nader. I pretty much agree with most everything with the Green Party, but I supported Obama twice. As you know, anytime we get particularly critical of Democrats, we get called a Trump supporter or something. And I'm not that, although I think it kind of woke everyone up to have Trump win. So I think I've definitely heard that theory, and I think I've subscribed to it too. Not that I'm happy that he won, but at the very least, look at it like you try to take everything as a learning moment. Right now, it's the ugly face of our crappy reality that we now need to do something about, and people are giving a damn rather than just sitting back and letting Obama take the wheel. Yeah, exactly. And I think that I will quote Susan Sarandon, the devil responsible for everything. And saying, I think it said that Obama, had this grassroots, efforts to help him get elected, and then he just left the grassroots on the White House lawn. And so I think, it's weird to see the Democrats keep trying the same old game. Like, we're not going to fall for that again. Obama talked a good show, and I supported him twice, but I have to say, I think I probably wasn't paying enough attention the second time around, or maybe I would have voted green again or something. But so I think, we in the progressive movement were very mindful of, we pay attention to following the money, first of all, I think, to see where a candidate, they can talk a good game. Yeah. But if they're beholden to special interests, then, that's what they're going to do in the end is answer to that. So. Okay, so the two groups that I know you're associated with, CFAR and CWAK. Now, what does CWAK stand for the audience out there? Okay, so CWAK is Candidates with a Contract, and I just actually recently joined the board with them, and I'm very excited about it and kind of wish I had done it sooner.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so. CFAR, which is Contract for American Renewal, I would say, well, both of these contracts are contracts that candidates sign that is basically a promise to the voters. This
Yeah.
is what I'm for, and this is what what I promise to fight for if elected. I often mention that both of these groups, CFAR and CWAK, we're broke. We have no money. We're not funded by anybody. And it is really just about this contract between the candidate and the voters. But CFAR is more progressive left, I would say, populist left is a better way to put it.
Okay.
And whereas candidates with a contract, their focus is really anti-corruption, getting money out of politics. And for that reason, CWAK tends to have, we have more independence and even a couple of Republicans who I'm very eager to interview, because I also kind of want to get out of that left bubble.
Right.
I think we can just be in this echo chamber where we're not, trying to find out, well, oh, look, there's this Republican that signed CWAK that is for net neutrality. Like, hey, that's pretty cool. Let's talk to this guy.
Let's get more people like that on their ballots, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I took a leap of faith when I named this progressive Rampage. We just call it ProgRam, really. I always like to think that progressive isn't really necessarily the term that's being used by the right to describe what they call the left and the rest of us call the center right. And I kind of like to think of it as, progress, people who are interested in progressing the population. So it is kind of populist, I could imagine.
Yes.
And so with that, you would expect there to be people on the right that would have the same kinds of thoughts. Maybe not the same execution, but at least they want the same goals met, right? More equality. So yeah, that's really awesome that CWAK has some people like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I've attended a lot of conferences that are pretty much the left. People's Summit, Unrig the System, People's Convergence, and most recently the Left Forum. And while I love it, I'm like, this is not reaching out to those independents. It's really in this kind of bubble off on the left. I think it's just important if, I always find myself in some of those instances at those those conferences wanting to just stand up and go, you guys do remember that Trump won, right? I mean, we can't just ignore this, and we need to get back to, I think if you just read Listen Liberal, Thomas Frank, it's a very simple message really, but I think that is spot on, the answer right there. Why did Trump win? Well, I mean, the Democratic Party left the working class behind. And that, I think, is what is not happening enough on the left, are those efforts to reach back out to those people. I mean, there were 12% of Bernie supporters voted for Trump. So, and there are many counties, we've interviewed some candidates, where these places voted for Obama twice and then voted for Trump. Well, the Democrats want to just say, oh, it's just Nazis voting for him. But, when you look at that, I don't think so.
No, not at all. It was definitely a protest move. And maybe with the same intention that we're kind of the silver lining that people are trying to point to, which is he is exposing not only his own corruption, of course, but it's a kind of a trickle-down effect to steal some shit from old Ronnie Reagan, right? Lots of other doors are opening up. I mean, the news doesn't cover it much, but they're going after the Clintons. There are several different things getting exposed with that, the child rings, like the human trafficking and all of that. It's waking up the right people, and it's exposing the people who we used to think we could trust, as folks who pretty much are off the rails now.
Yes,
but
there's still not enough of it, though. I feel like too many people still just trust the Democrats as the good guys. And I think, actually, I was going to look for this tweet really quickly. Who he goes by Silly Rabbit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Pat the Burner.
Yes, Pat the Burner. We've had him on to talk before, and anyway, my internet's not going to cooperate here, but... He had this hilarious tweet today, just basically saying, we're not going to vote for this Democrat and describe them like, that votes for Republican ideals. So it's just the way he words it is very funny, but
Yeah.
it's like people can't see that, if you scratch the surface and look underneath, they're not really a progressive candidate. They're not really going to change anything. It's Obama 2.0.
It's packaging, right? It's the same core belief system, and like I was saying, it's just a different method of execution, I guess. It's a little bit more sinister when they play to what you're hoping for and then leave you on the grass, as Sarandon put it. You mentioned interviewing these different people, so that can lead into a really awesome show, I think, Speakeasy. And so when does Speakeasy air? Because I see it constantly, and so I can't even tell what day it is. It multiple times?
It's on Saturday at about 10:30 p.m. We post a Zoom link, and we used to have it just completely open. There would be a Zoom link underneath, and then we started having trolls. These they came on and put like in 4 different windows at once, porn. So that first happened in the middle of, and we were trying to do an online town hall for Bill Sombrello.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we can no longer post it publicly, but I encourage anybody, if they happen to be watching and you want to come on and just, send me, if you follow me on Twitter, I'll follow you back, and we can send out a link. At least we have some idea that you're a real person before, and who you are before we send it.
And your Twitter handle, that's Kelley's Words?
It's at Kelley's Words, KELLEYSWORDS.
All right. Yeah, people, be sure to follow that. So you're involved in CWAK and CFAR. You've got Speakeasy going. I'm just curious, like, when would you say, for lack of a better term, when would you say you became activated? Was it a Bernie Sanders downfall in the primary? Was it prior to 2016?
It was.
What event kind of happened for you?
It was prior to that. I actually went to school for journalism, so I had a couple of rinky-dink articles published. One of them was on lead poisoning, and then I was busy being a mom, so I really didn't write much. As far as Bernie Sanders, I was a fan of his long before he ran, but. Hate to admit this, but I used to love Bill Maher religiously.
Back before he flipped, I have to insist, because I really think that his politics changed at some point in time.
Yeah,
I have to throw that out.
Yeah, I guess so, but he completely lost me. He really lost me before this, but when, during DNC week in Philly, he had an airing, I believe it was when he had Anthony Weiner was on.
Yeah.
And he posted a picture up of one of the Sanders delegates, had the tape over her mouth, the kind of everyone's seen those images, and he said,
right,
okay, well, it's time for you to shut the fuck up, basically, and vote for Hillary. And I was like, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah. When Al Franken and Sarah Silverman took the stage at the convention, that really broke my heart. I can't even listen to her comedy the same.
No, I feel the same way, and it's unfortunate, but so many of them did that, pretty much all of Hollywood comedy and everything. So thankfully we have, Lee Camp and Pat the Burner, and we have other people to listen to now. Jimmy Dore, oh my God, my favorite.
Oh yeah, Secular Talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
all those guys.
Bill Maher, I don't know. Did he really switch, or was he all? He's still anti.
Perhaps I would have to say, because of who the players were, it exposed who he had been all along. I used to like how Dennis Miller, back when he was with Saturday Night Live, used to rail against the establishment. I mean, he even had the Dennis Miller show on HBO, and I liked his rants he did. But then all of a sudden, 9/11, and now he's this hardcore conservative talk show host, right? And it almost seemed like his views of the entire world just changed overnight. I see that with these other people, but
I don't know. I think that also another thing, if you really pay attention to Bill Maher, I listened to him for quite a number of years, I hate to admit now, but he really does contradict himself, though. If you pay enough attention, and I can't stomach it anymore at all. But Yeah, I actually saw him live twice, but enough about Bill Maher.
Enough about Bill Maher.
I have different heroes now, and I have to say, back to your question. So I was politically, kind of a political junkie beforehand, or it was kind of getting more that way. And then, of course, Bernie running really did it. And I think that, that exposed what was really going on, the corruption in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Special interests were really controlling everything. And I just couldn't stop. Well, back then I still had cable, so I was comparing what I was seeing on CNN, and as a journalism major, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, that, all these things that happened in our elections. If you go to the Election Justice USA report, Democracy Lost, they kind of cataloged everything that was happening across the country in the primaries, and the people getting booted off the rolls, and
right, the exit poll data not matching. Yeah. I remember those distinctly.
Yeah. Right. And Lee Camp did a great job covering that, but it was like, none of these things are reported on the quote unquote news at all. There's something not right with this. And so their bias became so obvious. I mean, just glaringly obvious. And I honestly find that so much more scary than a Trump win. The fact that if our elections aren't secure, if our elections aren't free and fair, that's a lot scarier than one term of Trump. We're actually about to, hopefully pretty soon, add an election integrity pledge kind of attached to candidates with a contract, possibly with CFAR. One of the great things about my activism is getting to meet who are my new heroes, it's not.
Yeah.
And that would be like John Brakey. He's worked for a decade in election integrity efforts. He's so dedicated to that. I got to meet him at Left Forum. And, all this stuff is being reported now, but just not in the mainstream news. If you listen to that, it's all about, Putin hacked the election, not about what was done in the Democratic primary.
Right.
Or Bernie Sanders, so.
Yeah, that's why, I want to believe that there are still journalists at some papers, and there's still somebody working, maybe not on screen, but behind the scenes in the different news outlets that have integrity. But I give up on MSM until they're separated from the money that's driving their narratives. I just can't watch it anymore.
Truthfully, they're few and far between. And it just became glaringly obvious, because the reporting on what was happening, like in Bernie's campaign, or just the whole Bernie versus Hillary, was so obviously biased that, you saw it in almost every single publication. So I think the Real News Network is fantastic. I love them, and I got to meet Max Blumenthal too at Left Forum. That was really cool, because he's like, a great journalist.
He certainly is.
He does a great job. So
yeah, I like his work. You told me recently that you got a chance to chat for just a moment with Ray McGovern.
Actually, I got to stand out in front of the British Embassy in DC because this vigil for Assange was not as big as it should have been.
Yeah.
But no, I actually got to stand and talk to Ray McGovern for a good 30 minutes. Just
wow.
Which was so cool. And I just think so much of him. And, really all the people that are in this movement have got to meet so many great candidates and people that are just fighting, whistleblowers. That's been amazing. So when you meet him in person, it really, I know you probably saw or heard about where he was thrown to the ground, when they were nominating Gina Haspel, and
That's right.
Very vocal, and they removed him. But when you see him in person, I mean, he's older. He's in his 70s, and he's not a big guy. And I just, standing there next to him, talking to him, I couldn't imagine that they were throwing this man to the ground. It was very upsetting.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. But, so that's been really cool, getting to meet people that I admire in all of this. So yeah, I am a huge Assange supporter. It still blows my mind that we have people on the, I guess you call it the fake left, I don't know, the Democrats calling for his, burning at the stake. It's so disturbing. And, you know, I think some people forget that the Democrats loved him when he was Assange, when he was exposing what was going on in the Bush.
Right, when they first released the cables and they were showing that we were spying on all the other countries and the other countries were giving a crap about Assange and everybody was behind WikiLeaks doing this, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as it shows that, well, even Assange defended the fact that he didn't have much to put out about Trump because, well, Trump isn't an elected official. He's not doing anything within the government, so there's nothing for him to track, and nobody even submitted anything.
Right.
So it's not like he's biased.
No, but the media has done an amazing job of painting it that way. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to get back to CWAK and CFAR for a minute and about progressive candidates, because I actually got into a discussion on Twitter just yesterday about this. With kind of, you know, right now I think the big debate is, or the big split is between, with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, it's like people are already upset. Bree from Guion Journal wrote a great article about it, but basically like how the Democratic Party is going to just try to absorb her and co-opt her and any other candidate like her that wins.
Yeah.
And we're all going to be duped. And so this is the debate of like, do you say hell no to the Democratic Party, or do you see that there are people in still like Nina Turner that are desperately trying to reform the party from within? And like, she's a good example. I feel like she's honest and she's authentic and she's really trying to do that. And that's kind of the debate right now, I think, is like, where do you sit on that? And for me, as someone who is representing or interviewing candidates and representing CWAK and CFAR, I'm always thrilled when I see a candidate like Tim Canova who says, forget this, I'm running as an independent. But, you know, he tried and the ballots were destroyed. And he said the Democratic Party, I didn't leave the Democratic Party left me. So I'm always thrilled when I see a candidate running as an independent, but I am not going to just dismiss some candidate running as a Democrat because they've got a D by their name. You know, I think if they're trying and doing, you know, representing the same platform, that, you know, we get behind them and support them.
Josh and I had seen some people speaking about her on television and using terms like access to healthcare. And so that like is like a trigger word for some people who recognize that those who say access to healthcare aren't actually for Medicare for all. So our conclusion, I don't want to say that she's been, you know, moved to the dark side, I guess you could suppose. I think she's using their language so that she can piggyback on them, just like Bernie attempted to do, and actually make it all the way through and then still be on our side by the time she gets in. That's the benefit of the doubt I want to give her. So. Right.
And, you know, it's funny, we had this discussion just last night with a candidate we were talking to, Rich Stevenson.
Yeah.
Who's written this populist voter pledge. But, you know, I kind of liken it to the hell that Jimmy Dore catches for still being associated with TYT. But I think it is possible to be in it, to be in that environment. As long as you're going to stick to your guns, if you're going to stick to what, you know, what you say you're going to do, then more power to you. But I think it is going to take people watching and paying attention and not just letting their hands off the wheel and go, okay, they're elected, great. Because otherwise, you know, we're going to end up with a whole bunch of, my favorite example right now is Beto O'Rourke in Texas, because Lina Hernandez was a CFAR and CWAK candidate, and I wish she had won. She did really, really well.
Oh, she was excellent. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, someone had posted something about, you know, Ted Cruz and how, and they're like neck and neck. But what does that tell you, Beto and Ted Cruz?
Right.
Like, you know, that Ted Cruz is supported by Comcast, and he's taking money from Comcast, so he's not going to be for net neutrality. I'm like, hang on a second, go look up Open Secrets and Beto O'Rourke. AT&T has given his campaign lots of money. So what's the difference here? The packaging? I mean, really, it's not going to be any different. And unless we stay vigilant on top of these candidates about these things, they are going to be co-opted into the Democratic Party and packaged, and they're just hoping we'll forget about it and not pay attention.
I'm not a fan of the dismissive terminology whenever you raise a question about a candidate that you might like, and people say, well, you're giving them a purity test, when actually, well, but what I always counter that with, I'm like, no, this is the bare minimum, my friend. I mean, these are people representing more than one person, so that means they should be better than just one person. As far as like not, I mean, you can stumble, you're a human being, but to straight up take a kickback and say, nobody will notice, or to go and, commit illegal activity, high crime or misdemeanors, that's what I think everyone's standard should be.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I agree. I did one. I found this from Silly Rabbit today, and I think it just pretty much there are Dems on the 2018 ballot who we don't like or trust, who vote Republican and don't represent our values. We must enthusiastically phone bank, donate, and vote for them. Or we'll end up with politicians we don't like or trust who vote Republican and don't represent our values. And we've got this great little gif of someone that looks like it's one of the Blue Man group with blue paint all over him.
Yeah.
And it says, "I'm afraid I just blew myself." But yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, is we're not fooled by it anymore. And if we get attacked for questioning whether a candidate is, or elected official is still adhering to the stuff they ran on, so what? They can attack us. I think we have to stay vigilant on it. So that's what I intend to do. When we interview people, and I've really not ran across one candidate that really didn't seem to understand how the Democrats had rigged the primary, and I was
really,
I was a little surprised, but it was a great interview otherwise, and I just talked to him about. I said, "Have you heard about Tim Canova's case and what happened down there, and the ballot destruction?" He had. Okay. So, I just try to talk to them and say, maybe they really don't know. There are a lot of people, I think especially older, that are still MSNBC viewers, that are stuck in that 2004 mentality of like, the Democrats are the good guys. So I say watch the Real News Network, get active and listen to Progressive Rampage, and all the other great people out there that are trying to practice real journalism, follow all these candidates and what they're really doing. And
And if a big corporate news outlet kicks a journalist out, go find out why and then start listening to them wherever they land. Like, Cy Hirsch can't even be a journalist in the United States any longer. And that guy's been calling them left and right.
Yes. And even his stuff he said about Seth Rich, which got buried really quickly.
Yeah.
I won't go into that.
Even by himself, too. He said, "I live in the real world."
But I can't, what you said, I have to mention Ed Schultz.
Yeah.
I know, too many lately. Anthony Bourdain, who I consider, he was really a journalist. That's what he did,
Yeah.
Showing us other parts of the world. But Ed Schultz, I'm glad that he came out a few months ago and said what he did about how he was fired because of taking Bernie's side or trying to just give him airtime.
Yeah, and now that is echoing everywhere. I saw that on every single feed I have. It's all over the place. It's kind of, I don't wish that on anyone, but at the very least have a legacy like that can actually make a big difference in the world. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. He was one of my go-to also, when you just wanted truth. And big loss, very big loss. So we have to try to follow in his shoes as best we can and stick to practicing journalism and telling the truth, even if it's, gets you hate or accused of the purity test or whatever.
Okay, so shifting gears slightly here, I would like to have your predictions for this coming November and what you think is going to happen ultimately in 2020. Not who you think is going to run in Democrat or Republican. I just want to know, do you think Trump is going to win or he's going to lose in 2020?
That's a little too far off.
Okay.
It really might be too hard to predict. I would not be shocked if he won again. I will say that right now. I live in the Southeast, and I live in a very blue bubble, and I'm visiting now in a very blue bubble, but the rest of the state is red. And I know people, in-laws, and I would not be surprised in the least bit if he wins again. But I think what we're going to see, we're already seeing it in the primaries, is, the true progressives are not winning, but they're gaining ground. I think we're going to see the Democrats continue with this ridiculous, like Beto O'Rourke's post, we're just 2 points away from Ted Cruz. Really? You call that a victory? I mean, so I think we're going to see a lot of that where they just barely eke out some wins, and they're going to declare that as, it's all good now.
Well, I wonder, are they going to get the numbers they want in Congress? Well, because I mean, even though I'm not okay with the corporate Dems, at the very least, I would like to see Trump have a harder time push things through.
That's a tough one for me because there are things like big ramifications, that damage that he could do. But I don't know. At the same time, there's a part of me that I'm okay with Beto O'Rourke losing to Ted Cruz, because I think that in the long run, that will have them go, oh, okay, this is not working. People are not going to fall in line. So
I see what you mean. Wow, like another ripple effect from that phenomenon that gave us Trump.
Yep.
Okay. Wow, much deeper than I was thinking. Speaking of deep thinking, what the lightning round is going to be is a series of 10 questions, and these questions need to be answered rather quick. It's either going to be you give me a single answer or you answer from the two choices that I present. One of them is a trick question. I think you'll remember it from childhood. Are you ready? Okay, here comes lightning round.
Lightning round. Lightning.
Favorite color?
Green.
Favorite music or band that you're listening to right now?
Lenny Kravitz, more 90s recently.
Favorite meal to eat for dinner?
Seafood.
Favorite politician of all time?
We'll see. It's still yet to be determined.
Superdelegates, legitimate or nah?
No.
Bigger threat to your liberty, the Five Eyes or Bashir Assad?
Five Eyes.
Best pasta shape, rotini or rigatoni?
Rigatoni.
What is your favorite ism?
It's progressivism.
How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck couldn't chuck wood?
Sorry, that reminds me of my Canadian cousin who used to say. He called them woodchucks. Never mind.
I believe we were looking for as much chucked wood as a woodchuck could if a woodchuck couldn't chuck wood.
Oh, I couldn't remember all that. Sorry.
Okay, and final question. If you could be any type of tree, what type of tree would you be and why?
A birch tree. Because they're different, stand out.
Okay. Well, it has been a pleasure. Everybody out there, if you see a candidate who has signed on with CWAK or CFAR, it is a good bet that that's the person you should probably be voting for if you believe in the things that they are for, which is, everybody rising to the top together.
Yes, and if you ever see me exit from either of those, it's because there's stuff going on I don't agree with. It's important that we are not funded by anyone. That's really important to me, and that has to stay that way, I think.
And also Speakeasy. Speakeasy airs. When does it air again?
Saturday night at 10:30.
Saturday at 10:30.
Yes. Feel free, if you'd like to join, just send, when we go live or whatever, send me a message on Twitter and I'll send the Zoom link.
All right. Kelley, it has been a pleasure. And
yes, definitely.
All right. Take it easy.
Okay. Bye.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to a new segment that we're calling
Dark Ages 2.0.
Dark Ages.
Pew, 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 pew.
What exactly
we'll
is Dark Ages 2.0, Jesse?
Well, Dark Ages is, if you go back and you look at the actual terminology for the phrase Dark Ages, it refers to a time in history when those that were in power, i.e. the monarchy, the church, and the like, did not like that the average person was getting smarter, and that the leading people in science, philosophy, technology, if you will, even the technology back then was ridiculous. But they started going along the lines and pushing human understanding and mass disseminating that information amongst the populace and taking that control away from the powers that be and the powers that were in control. So what they did back then was they locked that shit down quick, and then you saw a resurgence in religion and religious rule and burning someone at the stake as a heretic, or imprisoning Galileo, or imprisoning a lot of these smart people that were trying to tell people, look, that what they say is not true. The earth does not revolve around, you know what I mean? We're not the center of the universe. And that I think it was roughly around 500 years. No, it wasn't that. Maybe not quite that long. But that initial start is what drove us back into the Dark Ages as far as science, technology, and human development. So, I mean, we were on track and on pace. I think the last thing that I saw that was really scary about that is the initial Dark Ages trend. When that took in and that took over, technology-wise, that set us back almost, I've seen some estimates between 700 years and 1,000 years as far as technology.
Jessie, could you see that this might be springing back up? I mean, even if you think about the flat earthers out there, right?
Yes,
it's like
exactly.
Rearing its ugly head. It's people infiltrating science class and public schools, trying to talk about the age of the Earth, trying to discredit like how rock formations are formed, and the very essence of evolution. I don't know. I get it's a theory, but Jesus Christ, like science needs to go forward, right?
But that's the thing. You can see it happening again and again, especially nowadays. That's why it's called Dark Ages 2.0. We'll go real quick. A lot of people don't understand, and if you look back through history, even in America, in the early 19th century, public school only went to like 6th grade. If you wanted to go on, your parents had to pay for high school.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
They do college, right? Now in this day and age, now we're at the same boat. We're still paying for higher education. And in one breath, you've got the Republicans or the money grubber side of society saying, America can't compete because we're lower, we're like the 38th in science and math and, all this other stuff compared to other countries. Well, a lot of people don't understand those other countries give away free education.
Yeah.
We don't. We charge for free. We charge for higher learning, and if
charge
you're
for everything here,
exactly. And I mean, I didn't go to college just because there was no way short of military service or going $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in debt. There was no way in hell I was going to college. None. And I know a bunch of people my age that went to college, and now we're in our 40s, and they're still paying back their student loan debts. And the paper that they got technically was not worth the money that they spent.
Not at all.
No. So now you're seeing this trend as far as this goes to the Dark Ages 2.0. You're seeing now Trump and his money grubbing ways and all the quote unquote rich and powerful people. They're pushing that back to what it was way back in the day, where they're making it to where it's almost impossible for someone who is not rich or wealthy to attend college. Well, if we don't attend college as being, the poorer working class, well, then that means that we've got all of these slots that are going to be filled by the Ivy League or the legacy kids, or, that's the same thing that you saw back in, the days with the monarchy in England.
Right. And what it's effectively doing is keeping anybody from the bottom to possibly matriculate into the top, proving themselves like in a meritocracy kind of situation where they're well, maybe not meritocracy, but their education level proves their worth and ability to be able to do more than just toil at the bottom.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. They want us fat, dumb, and stupid. Right, but they want us fat, dumb, and stupid, so we'll continue working at the minimum wage jobs and never make ahead, and we will continuously have to fill these low-level positions. Or if you want an education and you can't afford it, well, then now you got to strap on a fucking, an M16 to your back, or, military service, and go fight in our little fucking oligarchy wars to get us richer on the off chance that maybe you live long enough that we will send you to college on the GI Bill, which even now the GI Bill isn't covering what it should be covering.
Or you take on enough debt to never be able to leave anything to your children, which is kind of the point of making more money and trying to leave a legacy for your family. And
exactly. And now there's talk now about, not raising the minimum wage. I just saw a little fun little thing on YouTube through time. It's only a 3-minute little video, but it shows you the history of the minimum wage. I mean, the federal minimum wage was originally started in like the 1938, and it was 25 cents an hour. And I mean, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you compare that to today, to money even in 2014, it was really fairly, with meeting inflation and cost of living and everything else, it was actually a fairly decent wage. We peaked roughly in the 60s, I do believe is when the peak was, where the federal minimum wage in today's dollar was worth about $10.68 an hour. Where it went down, and this is going to be like no coincidence to anyone at all, where the minimum wage started to go back down and equal today's dollar as what it was back then, is it all started in the 80s with Reagan.
Okay.
And then it plateaued and it flattened off. And then the wage kept going up, but today's dollar, what it's worth, started to go back down. It started going down from Reagan until it pretty much peaked right at $7.25 in 2014. Now, what I mean by that is the money that you were being paid back then and today's dollar is today's buying power. So back in the 60s, a minimum wage, you could live off of it. Today, there's no way in hell that you could live off a minimum wage job. There's no way.
Yeah, for those people out there that argued, $10,000 is $10,000 no matter what era it is, because they like to talk about some of the rich folks and how they got their start, claiming to be coming from nothing. But you know what? 10 grand?
10 grand back in the 60s was a brand new car and a down payment on a house. Yeah, $10,000 today isn't, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to have 10 grand, but I mean, buying power wise, it's not nearly what it used to be. I mean, if I hear one more, old person talk about my day, I could go to the store with a nickel and buy a pack of smokes, a 6-pack of beer, 5 pieces of candy, and an hour with the hooker. Well, that's great. I mean, I can't walk into the store short of $20 to get, anything.
I remember a day when I was 16 when gasoline and cigarettes both cost $1.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that the last time I remember seeing gas under $1 was 20 years ago. 99 cents. Oh, let me rephrase that. That was in Canada.
That's about right.
99 cents a liter. So still $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
But for them, that was amazing. But it goes back to what, it's the same basic principle. It's playbooks of the rich and the powerful trying to keep that feudalism back into power and into practice, but disguising it and calling it, something else. The other one is now you've got the Trump administration actually telling our, scientists that they can't use certain terminology when it comes to talking about climate change.
I know, right?
How does that work? I mean,
and the Center for Disease Control, they're limiting their language as well, right?
Yeah, they're specifically making it to where the words that they use, which are considered common lexicon words, right? The layman should understand. They want to take that out and make it to where they have to use certain words that no one but another, CDC employee will understand. And to me, that's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, everyone's got to remember is do a 10-minute search on history of where our old money comes from in the United States. U.S. Oil. U.S. Oil, they were the first company to ever be tried under the federal monopoly statute, I do believe. And basically the Supreme Court of the United States back in the 20s or 30s forced U.S. Oil to break up its monopoly. So all he did is he broke that company of U.S. Oil up into 2 companies that no one's really even heard of today. I don't know, you ever heard of that little company called Exxon or Mobil? They're still owned by the same family. They're still, those are the only 2 options. And those were the only 2 options for a lot of people in a lot of states, but it was still one company. Still one guy owned it.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I've been watching a bit on is this whole DeVos secretary thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand why people can't really wrap their heads around the simple fact that if I have to borrow $30,000 to go to school for 4 years, but when I get out, I have to pay you $75,000, I would have been better off going and borrowing $30,000 from the mafia loan shark down the street. I would be paying less in the long run.
You might have a point there. I'll bet they wouldn't charge those kind of points.
No, exactly. And then, going through and reading and watching some of the confirmation hearings and seeing some of the things that they do, a lot of people don't understand. This lady has no background whatsoever in education. None.
No. And what does her brother do for a living again? Please remind me.
He owns 4 out of 5 of the biggest student loan company or debt reclamation companies in the United States.
You know what else he runs?
Oh, he also runs Blackwater, isn't it?
Blackwater. Well,
Yeah.
What do they call themselves now? They changed their name after all
I don't know, the fucking Happy Tree Hug Me Friends. Fucking
We swear to God we didn't kill all those children in Iraq group.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It doesn't matter if on the side of your fucking 40 millimeter grenade launcher on your fucking Humvee, if you point and paint a fucking unicorn, it still doesn't make it fucking user friendly. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Like she in and of herself, the family that she comes from, they're worth like $8.5 billion, if not more. She herself, just her, she's worth 1.5. She takes her own private jet. She takes all of her stuff with her on her private jet. She doesn't, claim the travel bonuses, and she doesn't do this, and she doesn't do that that everyone likes to point out. But as a government employee, she's entitled to. And it's like, bitch, you got $1.5 billion. You should not be working in the government. You have no skin in the game whatsoever. It's like she's
it's stratospheric. She's so separated from the rest of the world. No wonder her education policy reflects that too, right?
Yes, and not only that is here's a nice little fact that a lot of people are going to find really, really cool. And this will fit in what Josh was talking about with ICE. Okay, so in New York and the upper East Coast, a lot of these children that have been separated from their migrant parents or their illegal alien parents, they've been going to schools, right? They're being housed in charter schools that never opened. Guess who owns those schools?
Betsy DeVos's family.
That is correct. And they're getting paid. They are getting paid upwards of $700 a day per child.
It's almost like the way the private prison system operates, right?
Exactly. It's
the more you private them in, they're cattle.
Yes. They're so now not only are we as taxpayers paying for this fucking problem at $700 a day or $700 a day per child. Ahead. Now we're also as taxpayers paying for the adults. We're paying for the people to feed these kids drugs and to take care of these kids. And we're same thing with their parents on the jailer, if you will, notion. So, but then we've got all of these other people who are supposed to be public servants making a fucking dollar off of it personally. And that to me is just the most vile thing that I can actually think of. But I mean, long term, if you would just bring these people in, like right now, just all these people that are in right now, you could actually go through and how much we're paying to incarcerate them and their children, and then just divide that by how many days they've been in. And you could have gone through and spent a tenth or an eighth to a tenth of that and actually vetted them with the FBI to say, okay, well, these guys, yeah, they're not criminals. Let's cut them loose and give them a little bit of a stipend to start up. And here's your paper to work. And now you're a tax-paying citizen.
Yeah.
And it would be a tenth of what we're spent. And you're recouping money because now they're in the tax stream.
Right. But instead, they want to allow it. Well, I really think there is another piece of this whole puzzle people aren't focusing on, and it's the kickbacks from the companies that make money off of allowing illegals to enter in.
Again, my thing is this. I can stop illegal immigration in 30 days, 60 days max.
How would you do that?
Easy. I would just start an institute of policy that says now, because of Citizens United, right? That means that a company can have a bullshit religious belief and actually discriminate against those who don't follow that belief, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, the only way that you could do that is Citizens United basically makes a company a legal living entity that now has civil rights and constitutional rights as when it comes to religion and their ideology, correct?
I would say so.
Okay. Now, that being said, 20 years ago, you could only penalize a company, whether it was a pharmaceutical or a gun manufacturer or, the pajama company that made,
flammable pajamas.
Flammable pajamas for children. right? You could not take that CEO and put him in jail, even though he knowingly and willfully did this.
Right.
Because he was a corporation. Corporations aren't people, and you can't throw a person in jail on behalf of the corporation. Now, Citizens United changed that rule. So I would state that all of these companies now under Citizens United, that means that their CEO is that company.
It is the human form of the representation of the person.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Now, any company that is caught hiring illegals or has illegals on their payroll, either knowingly or unknowingly, that CEO goes to jail. Period. For every single one. Because, like I said, I could sit here and be a drug dealer and give drugs to my quote-unquote little minions, and they could go out in society and sell that drugs. I'm still the one that's going to benefit by getting all of that money.
I have to say that, you know, we've been using punitive encouragement in this country for far too long, and it might be about time that we start trying to make the path to becoming a citizen, the path to doing the right thing, the easiest path to take. Make it so difficult and painful and disheartening. All you have to do is put 2 or 3 CEOs in jail, and the rest will follow in lockstep and stop hiring.
But here's my thing. Wait. There are companies that will hire illegal immigrants knowing they don't have a social security card, knowing they don't have a tax number.
I've worked with illegal immigrants. I know.
Okay. So
yeah.
that being said, how come your boss was never thrown in jail? He broke the law. He's the one that hired him.
Because he has plausible deniability about that.
No, he doesn't. No, Juan didn't come in and be like, hello, my name is Steve, and I am from Texas. Yeah.
Security numbers? Technically.
You got to check those, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But you can't sit here and tell me this guy that you just hired who doesn't speak a lick of English, and you look at his social security number and it's 554, and a lot of people don't know this. The first 3 digits of your social security number designate a time period in that number sequence. Do you know that? So if you get some guy named Juan, and Juan's 20 years old, and you look at his social security number and it starts off with 552, right there should be a fucking red flag, because 552 technically would make Juan more along the edges of fucking 50 to 70.
I see.
Oh, yeah. So you can't sit here and tell me that you don't know that Juan, who don't speak a fucking lick of English, has a social security number that's basically should be he's in his 60s or 70s. Well, and he's 21 years old. That should be a red flag. But you hired him anyway. Doesn't matter. You still broke the law as an employer. Your ass needs to go to jail, and Juan needs to get deported.
It would appear to me that there isn't enough enforcement of that, because the rule is set such that it's easy enough for the owner of the company to walk away with it unscathed. And they just come and they say, yeah, sure, fine, search the whole place. Or maybe they get a fine, but the fine is worth to them. It costs them less than it would have cost in order to hire a person that had proper papers and was getting paid a real wage. But the people that I worked with that were illegally in the United States, they got paid under the table in cash. I watched it happen. So
they
really,
didn't pay taxes.
Whistleblowing might even make me an accomplice to that. I'm not quite sure.
No, technically, under that statute, you are not required. I'm pretty sure it's not a Good Samaritan law, and I'm pretty sure you're not required.
Okay, well, I feel safer. But honestly, I think if you change those laws and we're able to lock people up for it, it would stop like overnight, right? Or like you said, within 30 days. Within
30 days. Like I said, let ICE go through and do what they do, but that's fine. But you better have another set of handcuffs for whoever is the owner of that business, and let that owner of the business be up on charges, and then him explain in a court of law why he should not be arrested, and why I had no idea because I have a hiring manager. So You're telling me but it doesn't matter. It's no different than if you owned a company, right? If I owned a burger shack, and I had a couple of employees and they're selling drugs out of my establishment, legally I am still culpable for that activity.
Exactly.
But why are they not culpable for breaking federal law and hiring an illegal alien? Why is that a fine? The reason that is a fine. Exactly. But a lot of people don't understand. I grew up in California, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, and there's a couple of other states. If you gave Trump a magic wand that instantaneously got rid of all illegal aliens in the United States and magically deported them back to their countries, wherever they're from, he just literally had to have a State of the Union address with this one and go bippity boppity boop, you're all deported. The economy of all of those states that I just said would crash instantaneously.
Yeah, they're already feeling some heat in California with the pickers.
Yes, because I grew up in an agricultural town, and when I was a kid looking for a summer job or whatever, I would go and be like, hey, I'll go work for a fruit packing company. You walk in there, and I'm not being racist, but I'm just saying that you see one white guy, and he's the floor manager, and he's the one that's over all of these people, and every person that you see there is Mexican.
Right.
Which, hey, I got no problem with that. But when, I go, hey, you guys got any work for, summer jobs? Oh, yeah, no, we're full. Okay, and then the next day you see, it wasn't ICE back when I was a kid. It was La Migra, immigration.
Right, INS.
INS. They would raid these places, and literally they would instantaneously lose 70% of their staff. And you would think to yourself, oh man, that company's going to go under. 2 days later, they're back up and operating at full fucking capacity, and yet they haven't hired anyone out of the community.
Yeah, right.
So, yet how does that work? Well, they just turned around and went right back and hired the rest of that 70% of staff as illegal immigrants. Because they, and this is why I say I have nothing against this, because these people were working hard. And the sad thing is, they're getting paid a quarter of what a legal worker would have to be paid. Exactly. They were being paid like $1.50 an hour.
It's not the immigrant, it's the asshole hiring illegally.
That is correct. So if you want to look at the immigration problem, ICE needs to start focusing on the people who are benefiting from this labor. And
but see, if the people who get to lock other people up start focusing on the top, which is fewer people and far lighter shades of skin tone, then you wouldn't be able to fill all of the prison system up with a whole bunch of brown people so that they can be turned into dollars, just like the kids in private schools with DeVos.
Well, that's the thing is
that would
we got to
why they don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas we, as the mighty masses, need to start demanding that private prisons go away. That's akin to slavery. I mean, that's slavery, hands fucking down.
13th Amendment, dude. It allows, and that has to be changed up, I think.
Yeah.
It allows prisoners to still be treated as slaves.
Yeah, exactly. And it needs to be changed. The other part of the Dark Ages that a lot of people don't realize is they're doing the same thing. Get everyone to focus on a small, insignificant thing and completely ignore the giant monstrous thing that's around the corner. Whether that's an attack on your religious beliefs or that's an attack on your way of life, or if that's attack on an ethnic group, a race. It's the same playbook. Now, hey, did anyone ever notice that the Black Lives Matter movement? When's the last time you heard anything out of them?
Not too much, actually. I mean, I follow them on Twitter, but they haven't really made the news lately.
No, and yet, does that mean that they won? That they get what they were going for? That police now in the United States are no longer shooting unarmed black men?
Oh, of course not. It's just not that time in the cycle of the stuff that the news is allowed to tell us about. That's
right. I saw some shit on the news last night or Friday night that just blew my mind about Trump. Like, he's now talking about federal minimum wage needs to actually go down. Corey told me a little fact. I'll have to vet it before I believe it 100%. But she said she saw this article that said it cost the makers in China of the iPhone $8.80 something cents to make that phone.
No way.
Yep.
Including parts? I don't know about that.
Labor, $8 and change.
Jesus Christ.
And we're paying $1,000 for them.
Right.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. The Dark Ages is they want to keep us dumb. But they don't want, so think about it, is there's a reason why they push this whole minimum wage is too high. The U.S. can't be, competitive in the world manufacturing market. No, we can't be competitive in the world manufacturing market as it stands right now because you're allowing countries that have slave labor to make our products. Of course we can't compete.
We never will until we're allowed to work for the same rate.
I don't want to work for that rate. I would much rather see these countries and the U.S. stopped giving, and companies not allowed to go into these countries, and exploit that slave labor market, and then turn around and sell me that product and sell it to me. An iPhone is $1,000 right now. It costs $8.80 something cents to make. I mean, that's an astronomical fucking profit margin. So now you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, if it only costs you $8 and change to make, how much were your workers paid? Because most of that cost is going to go into the actual components. So that means what? A highly skilled, quote unquote, what Trump said is the reason we can't compete with phone makers in China is because they are highly skilled workers. Your highly skilled worker that made that $8 phone is probably only making 7 cents for each phone that he makes.
Yeah, that's not.
And he's highly skilled.
Well, it's not a skill that they've learned on the factory floor. It's not like these people went to college to do this.
Yes, they did. Yeah. In China, it's come out now that the whole communist thing where communist says you're going to be a carpenter and you're going to be this and you're going to be that. They've purposely slaked certain section of the population that you're going to learn how to make iPhones and that's all you're going to learn.
No way.
They send them to school and they train them to make iPhones when they're small and they're little. That by the time they're done, they can come out and make this shit. But that's all they can do.
Doesn't that kind of echo the idea that people have been kicking around in America for the past few years, trying to make community college free for everyone so that the poorer classes will end up going to a trade school and learn, maybe they still feel like they have a choice, right? Because they can pick, I could do construction, I could do cooking, you know what I mean? And so it's almost like that same method. Like that's going to create the workforce, and Betsy DeVos is in there in order to ensure that to go through.
Correct, because they don't want some poor kid out of Harlem who's really good with computers to have a goddamn chance to become the next Bill Gates or to become the next Zuckerberg or to become the next.
They want his chance to be 1 in a trillion because he's not going to be able to have an education to back it up unless, of course, he wants to go into such massive debt. It doesn't matter how much money.
Right. Because they want one of their own ilk, one of their legacy kids, one of their quote unquote white inbred, bottom chin jutting fucking. I do say, Margaret, I wish I could have come up with Facebook.
Jesus.
That kid is going to be the one that comes up with theirs, which is going to be like fucking Gold Book or fucking Fuck the Poor Book. You must have $1 billion to sign on. That's the people that are going to be doing the next thing because they want everyone else. Like, here's another one that gets me, okay? Why do we focus on patriotism for thanking someone for going into military service and protecting us from an enemy that has no real threat to our sovereign nation to begin with?
I would say because we want to take their resources.
No, that's the big point. That's what we want to do. But here's my thing. You wouldn't think, that's that. How do I word this? Why is it we're patriotic when we start thanking people for being a service industry? I don't think the guy that makes my fucking French fries at McDonald's, you don't get to see him stand up at a fucking ball game and yes, and all the people who are fry cooks at McDonald's, please stand up and take a bow. They're still providing. They're still providing a service, are they not?
Right.
But everyone can sit here and point out that the simple fact you want a nice little trip down memory lane. Watch Shock and Awe. We watched that over the weekend, me and the wife, and I really shouldn't have watched that movie because it just dredged up all of that shit from 2001 that was not fucking good.
Oh man, was that the day that she made? I saw a post on Facebook. She said she was wound up like a yo-yo.
No, it was like, it was horrible. The movie was good, don't get me wrong, but it brought up all this shit. I remember thinking even back then, it's bullshit. It's all lies, it's smoke, it's mirrors, and we're not going to go in Afghanistan where these people were. We're going to go Iraq. And sure enough, we go and invaded Iraq. I remember sitting in Canada having arguments with other people looking at me going, how can you be so unpatriotic when your country's talking about going to war? So we're not going to war with people who did something to us. We're going to war with a country that is on a list for an agenda that has nothing to do with this.
Another good movie I recommend that would probably do the same thing for you is it's like an interview with Donald Rumsfeld called The Unknown Known.
Oh, yes. Rumsfeld, you
that grinds me right the fuck up at the end of it. I can't take it.
You know, and that's the thing. But if you go back and you look, I mean, like right now, they're scrubbling and grumbling because certain trades in the United States, people are not filling the trades. They're talking and bitching about how the numbers for joining the military are down, and they're blaming, you know, the millennials. And it's like, well, technically, we're the parents of this quote unquote millennial generation. And I don't know about you, but I taught my kid not to be a fucking cheat.
And not to kill.
Not only that, but I mean, like I said, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not unpatriotic. The first fucking sign of Red Dawn that I see in the skies over fucking Georgia, I'll be the first to pick up a rifle and defend my fucking homeland.
Yeah, but we're never going to be isolationists like that.
But I'm not going to let my child sign up to join the military to get sent off to Kazakhstan because they have a rare earth element that, you know, someone like fucking Apple needs to make the new fucking touchscreen so they can make their touchscreens for 72 cents instead of 78 cents and make Bill Gates more money or fuck whoever runs Apple right now. That's all that shit is for.
Yeah, yeah.
It's either oil or resources, both of which we don't need.
I would say so.
All we're doing is going over in all these fucking third world fucking countries and creating the next enemies or the next supervillain or the next villain for the next 2 generations. You know, I saw a fucking unfortunate meme that made me laugh, and then the meme went, do you know the difference between a Muslim wedding, or was it a terrorist camp at a Muslim wedding?
What's the difference?
No, there is no difference. I don't know. I just fly the drone. You know what I mean? And that's exactly awful. It is awful, but it's got a real bad grain of truth to it. It's the same thing. It's a Dark Ages 2.0. We're not being told what our military is out there doing. Why are we operating in 4 theaters? You know what I mean? There's a couple of things that are going on in Syria right now that the U.S. is involved in, but I've yet to see it on the fucking news.
And I think they've covered the genocide taking place in Yemen, where they're flying our jets and dropping our bombs, but it's Saudi military wiping out non-combatants. And I think the news mentioned it once.
Yeah,
and just kind of said there is something going on in Yemen, but they don't even dive into it. No. And I mean, meantime, you know, Saudi Arabia is sitting at the head of the Human Rights Council of the UN. Are you fucking kidding me?
So why are they using our jets when it's Saudi Arabia and they have like trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars?
Oh, because we sell it to them.
Oh,
We're the biggest arms dealer in the entire world.
Exactly. And it's a perfect example, going back to Dark Ages 2.0. We are getting involved in religious wars that we need not be involved in. Look at Israel and Palestine. Take your comic book fucking bullshit beliefs and shove them up your ass. Israel can drop their arms and Palestine can drop their arms. And I say, just go back to 500 years ago and I want to see you both beat each other to death with sticks. Winner gets the land. No guns. No explosives. No. You want the land, you go back old-fashioned style. But you'll never see that. And I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have their beef, and I'm not saying Palestine doesn't have their beef. I'm saying that it's a religious war, and I'm of neither religion, and I really don't give a shit.
The linchpin is religion. If you took that out, I don't understand how half of these wars would even need to occur anymore.
I don't know. I think a lot of people need to realize that if mankind has any hope at all, countries that are quote-unquote first world countries, United States, G20 countries, we need to get the fuck out of religion. We need to get the fuck out of religious beliefs. Stop bringing in people with wacky-ass religious beliefs into our politics and start pushing the only thing that we can prove. We can prove science. Can't prove religion. You can argue all day long, and I will give you that. That's a great argument to have, but it's arguing what came first, the chicken or the egg.
And personally, I like this argument here. It's kind of putting something that they like to say on its head. What Christians have said to me in the past, and I just don't identify with that anymore, but I don't say that I'm an atheist. But anyway, what they've said in the past is when you die, you're either going to meet your maker or you're not. You're either right or you're wrong. Now, if you go ahead and just live a life of a Christian, then when you die, if you're wrong, nothing happens anyway. But if you're right, then you end up getting to go to heaven. And so therefore, why wouldn't you go to church and be a good boy? And so to that I say, if you were God and you put all these people on the planet in order to get them to interact with each other, and you started telling let's say you really did speak to someone's ear and say, this is what I really think about this, or that's what I really think about that. Wouldn't you have the foresight to see that that would cause a lot of murder and mayhem? And do you really, if you're all loving and all knowing, want to have that happen? Or would you rather be a true scientist, as you might suggest a higher power would be in order to create all of this, and sit back and say, I don't want you to pledge anything to me. I don't even want you to pay attention to me. Don't look at me. I'm the audience. I made this. Now go do whatever it is that you're going to do. I gave you free will for a reason, but not to test you, just to give you something. So if you want to believe that there is a God, at the very least, stop following man's stupid fucking rules that only bring bloodshed and mayhem and fighting for eternity. That's my spiel.
That's a good spiel. Like I said, I refer to it as comic book religion, comic book belief.
Yeah, it is.
That's all it is.
Like, bad guys, and you got to kill them or else blah, 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 right? Like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, again, like I said, I don't have a problem with religion until you start using your wacky-ass beliefs to impose your will through law on people who don't share your moral standard. Period. You don't want to have an abortion, don't have an abortion. But don't make a law that states that no one can. You don't want to smoke weed, don't smoke weed. But don't make laws that says that anyone who smokes weed will go to jail.
We saw what happened
problem I have.
People didn't want to drink alcohol, and they told everyone else they couldn't either.
Yeah.
It killed tens of thousands of people.
Yes. And
they
they
don't
did
talk about that.
No, because they did it to show them that they would have that mentality of, oh, so it's all poison. Well, you know what? If I couldn't drink back and I lived back during Prohibition times, are you kidding me? That's the shit times? You can't sit there and tell me you wouldn't fucking drink.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Now, that going back to what we were talking about with this whole Dark Ages thing, that's a really big reason why I think that they don't want to really legalize marijuana across the board. Because it does two things. One, it gives people a outlet to relax and decompress and get out of the fear zone that we're all constantly put in through media, you know, through advertising, through the news, through all these other shit. You don't make enough money, the girl won't date you. You don't drive the right car, the girl won't date you. Oh, you bought the car, but you bought it on the wrong loan, and now you're going to pay more. You know what I mean? It's constant
consumerism,
fear.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you live in a state. Let me ask you a question. You live in a state where you actually can do whatever the hell you want when it comes to marijuana. Are you constantly afraid? Overall, general, where would you say your fear index level would be before and after?
Before it was constant, after it's gone.
Right. So, but the thing is now that you're not afraid, and we all know that fight or flight, and most people will have the flight instinct, but now you're not running to consume that next thing. You actually have a moment to sit back and relax and think and have critical thinking. And that's the thing a lot of people don't understand is marijuana is one of the few drugs that actually enhances your ability to critically think.
As long as you're not in a moment of fight or flight.
Correct.
No, I mean, I think the paranoia comes out of a
that's
real
natural
understanding of what you should be panicking over. And so since that's not there, that paranoia really is little to none. I mean, it's always an augmentation of what was always there. It's not like a changing of your reality. You're not eating acid. You're smoking marijuana.
Right. So now that being said, if all 50 states across the board had access to what you have access to, how much of their fear campaign do you think would be running now?
You know, I honestly don't think it would change the numbers all that much because I do know that legalization doesn't increase the use. By a very big margin. At least the statistics they showed in Colorado was like less than 5% change in surveys that they took over and over again to see who was actually smoking or eating. THC.
Well, exactly. All it did was give Colorado to be basically one of the first marijuana tourist destinations.
Yeah, and it increased their revenue.
Yep.
Tenfold maybe?
Something like that. And the thing is
maybe not.
But historically, the U.S. has always done that. Back in the early or late 1800s, it wasn't marijuana; it was divorce. There were divorce destination states for Vermont, Minnesota, or Vermont, Wyoming, Montana. there were all these places that they decided that, you know, you could get a divorce as long as you were here as a resident for 30 days. And there's actually a very, very well-known socialite who ended up living in Montana for, I think, 90 days just so she could get a divorce from her European Duke husband. But, I mean, but that goes back to show you when the government steps in and says you can and cannot do something, it's no different than back in the Dark Ages when it was the church that said you can and cannot do this.
It happened, but it was having to happen under the guise of other things in the darkness, in circumstances where people would normally take a cleaner route but have to take a dirtier one. It's a lot like the threat of losing, of having Roe v. Wade overturned. And all of a sudden, it's not going to reduce abortions. It's just going to put them in a back alley again and kill those women. You know?
No, and honestly, I think if Trump gets some right-wing nut job, old, crusty Christian fucking viewed idiot on the Supreme Court, I say if Roe versus Wade gets repealed, I think that is the one that should just basically...
That needs to fill the streets with people.
Period. You're talking about doing something that we have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, scientifically, socially, your wacky ass Christian beliefs do not dictate what the rest of the country gets to do. They still found a way to fucking hijack it. They still found a way to fucking, to do it. I mean, for fuck's sakes, we still eat cornflakes. Cornflakes was brought up by this right-wing Christian fucking idiot as a fucking low-protein food to keep you from fucking touching yourself because he was so concerned with that. Like, come on. I mean, it's 2018 and people are still worried about who's getting an abortion. They're still worried about what you believe in or what you don't believe in. They still sit here and say, well, if a Christian baker doesn't want to make a cake, then fucking great. But when that is applied to their asses and the other end, suddenly it's a fucking problem when you ask someone to leave your restaurant because she works for the fucking evil Oompa Loompa. Sorry.
Good point.
It's 2018. There's other stuff to fucking worry about. I want to see space travel in my fucking lifetime, so stop with this religious fucking bullshit.
Me too. And with that, we're going to have to go ahead and close the show. But if you really like what you heard, or hell, if you wanted to hear more curse words or maybe fewer curse words, or even curse words replaced with crazy fucking shit that we make Jessie say, you can go to patreon.com/progressive rampage. That's patreon.com/progressive rampage. And
that's right. I am a whore, so come by.
And there's even more that you can do with it. You can get free music. You can get a chance to be the director of the show for a day. It's awesome. Anyway, go check it out. And Jessie, it has been a pleasure as always.
Same here. Pleasure.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. Well, take it easy, Mr. Cameron.
All right, homie. Hey, thanks. As always, it's a pleasure. And, to the revolution.